He doesn't start with the Triforce of Courage. He doesn't inherit legendary power from the gods. And unlike every other Link who came after him, this hero begins his journey as nothing more than a 16-year-old boy thrust into impossible circumstances with zero divine blessings. The hero of Zelda II, The Adventure of Link, might be the most overlooked protagonist in the entire franchise, but his story reveals something profound about what it actually means to be courageous. Because this Link didn't receive courage as a birthright, he forged it through blood, sweat, and countless deaths in the most brutally difficult Zelda game ever created. When The Adventure of Link launched in 1987, players expecting a comfortable sequel to the original Legend of Zelda got something radically different. Gone was the top-down exploration that defined the first game. Gone was the feeling of gradually becoming more powerful through item collection. Instead, players faced a side-scrolling action RPG that featured platforming challenges, aggressive enemies with complex attack patterns, and a leveling system that meant grinding for experience points in dangerous territories. This wasn't just a different game, it was a different kind of hero's journey entirely. But here's what makes this Link story so fascinating from a lore perspective. The quest doesn't begin with Ganon's resurrection or an ancient prophecy about a chosen hero. It starts with a completely personal motivation that has nothing to do with saving Hyrule from darkness. Link discovers a sleeping princess hidden in the North Castle, a different Zelda from the one he rescued in the first game. According to the tragic backstory revealed through the game's manual, this princess, the original Princess Zelda from generations past, fell into an eternal slumber after refusing to reveal the location of the Triforce of Courage to her own brother, a prince who sought the complete Triforce for himself. The prince's magician attempted to force the information from Zelda through a spell, but when she still refused, the magic went wrong and trapped her in unbreakable sleep. The magician died from the magical backlash, the prince was overcome with guilt, and the sleeping princess was laid to rest in the North Castle with the hope that someday someone worthy would awaken her. Every princess born to the Hyrulean royal family after that tragedy was named Zelda in her memory, a tradition that continues throughout the entire Zelda timeline. So when Link encounters this sleeping ancestor, he's not responding to destiny or divine calling. He's driven by compassion, by the desire to correct an ancient wrong, to awaken someone who suffered for protecting power from those who would misuse it. This is deeply personal heroism, not cosmic obligation. And that distinction matters because it fundamentally changes the nature of Link's courage throughout the adventure. Now, let's talk about what Link faces on this quest, because the game doesn't hold back. The Adventure of Link features some of the most punishing combat in franchise history. Enemies don't just damage Link, they actively try to kill him with sophisticated AI patterns. Iron Knuckles mirror Link's movements and block his attacks. Moblins coordinate ambushes and use shields strategically. Blue Focas leap at unpredictable angles, requiring perfect timing to counter. And the Palace Guardians? They're nightmare fuel. These powerful knights guard the temples containing the crystals needed to enter the Great Palace, and they require mastering both offensive strikes and defensive positioning to defeat. Death in Zelda II doesn't just mean losing hearts and restarting the game, it means game over and returning to the very beginning of the adventure at North Palace with only 3 lives. Players could spend an hour making progress through difficult terrain, gathering experience, leveling up attack and magic stats, only to die to a single blue iron knuckle and lose all that advancement. The game forced players to get better, to learn enemy patterns, to master the jump thrust and downward stab techniques. There was no easy mode, no forgiving checkpoint system. Link survived through player skill, period. This brutal difficulty serves a narrative purpose beyond just challenging gameplay. Every death, every restart, every grueling battle represents Link earning his courage through adversity. He's not inherently blessed with heroic ability. He has to develop it through repeated failure and eventual triumph. The game mechanically reinforces that courage isn't something you're born with. It's something you cultivate through facing fear and persisting despite overwhelming odds. And those odds are overwhelming. Link travels across Hyrule, placing crystals in 6 palaces to break the magical barrier protecting the Great Palace where the Triforce of Courage sleeps. Each palace grows progressively more challenging, with more complex layouts, deadlier enemies, and boss guardians that test everything the player has learned. The Pair-Up Palace eases players in with relatively straightforward rooms.
The Island Palace throws horsehead boss fights and collapsing bridges into the mix. The Maze Island Palace lives up to its name with confusing layouts designed to disorient. By the time players reach the Three-Eye Rock Palace or the Great Palace itself, the difficulty reaches truly punishing levels. But here's the beautiful thing about this structure. It mirrors a hero's authentic growth. Link doesn't storm into the first palace wielding legendary weapons and divine protection. He enters with a basic sword and shield, questionable combat skills, and very little magic power. Each palace forces him to adapt, to learn new techniques, to find hidden magic spells that expand his capabilities. The jump spell lets him reach higher platforms. The fairy spell transforms him temporarily to access narrow passages. The thunder spell devastates multiple enemies. The reflect spell bounces projectiles back at attackers. These aren't gifts from the gods. They're tools Link earns from wise men hidden throughout Hyrule who recognize his determination and teach him the knowledge he needs to succeed. The leveling system reinforces this gradual empowerment. Link gains experience points from defeating enemies, and when he accumulates enough, he can choose to level up his attack, magic, or life stats. This creates meaningful decision-making. Does Link need more offensive power to defeat stronger enemies? More magic to cast spells multiple times? More health to survive longer in dangerous areas? Each choice reflects how players want their Link to grow, personalizing his journey in ways other Zelda games don't allow. And this brings us to the philosophical core of Zelda II's narrative, the Triforce of Courage itself. In later Zelda games, particularly after Ocarina of Time established timeline lore, the Triforce of Courage becomes something that marks the chosen hero. Link inherently possesses it or receives it as proof of his destiny. It's a symbol of what he already is. But in Zelda II, the Triforce of Courage is the goal. It's what Link seeks, what he must prove himself worthy to obtain, what he literally fights through hell to earn. The Great Palace represents the ultimate test of that worthiness. This sprawling labyrinth contains the most dangerous enemies in the game, requires mastering every combat technique, demands perfect navigation through maze-like corridors, and culminates in a boss gauntlet that pushes players to their absolute limit. The Thunderbird boss flies overhead launching devastating fireballs, while Link has to time Thunderspell casts perfectly to damage it. This alone would be a worthy final challenge, but it's not the final challenge. After defeating the Thunderbird, Link enters the final chamber where the Triforce of Courage awaits. But before he can claim it, a shadow emerges from his body and takes his form. Dark Link, the original Shadow Link that would become iconic in later games, stands between the hero and his goal. This isn't just a difficult boss fight, it's a symbolic confrontation with Link's own doubts, fears, and limitations. The shadow mirrors every move, blocks every attack, punishes every mistake. Players can't brute force this fight, they have to outsmart their own combat instincts, find openings and patterns they've been using throughout the entire game, essentially defeat their own fighting style to prove they've truly mastered courage. And when Link finally triumphs over his shadow self and claims the Triforce of Courage, something incredible happens. The completed Triforce awakens the sleeping Zelda, breaking the curse that held her for generations. But more than that, Link becomes the first hero in the timeline to unite all three Triforce pieces through his own efforts. He didn't inherit them, wasn't chosen by destiny to possess them, didn't stumble upon them through circumstance. He earned power by defeating Ganon in the first game, earned wisdom by choosing to save Zelda rather than claim it for himself, and earned courage by proving his worth through the most brutal trials any Link has ever faced. Now here's where the timeline implications get fascinating. According to the official Zelda chronology established in Hyrule Historia, the adventure of Link takes place several years after the original Legend of Zelda in the Downfall timeline, the timeline branch where the Hero of Time failed to defeat Ganon in Ocarina of Time. This is a darker timeline, where Ganon has won multiple times, where Hyrule has fallen and been restored repeatedly, where hope is scarce and darkness seems inevitable. And in this timeline, Link earning the Triforce of Courage takes on additional significance. The Hero of Time possessed the Triforce of Courage in Ocarina of Time. It was marked upon his hand, proof of his chosen status. But when he fell to Ganon in the Downfall timeline, that blessing was lost. The Triforce of Courage had to be hidden away in the Great Palace, protected by barriers and guardians, waiting for someone worthy to claim it again. The fact that Zelda II's Link earns it through personal trials rather than divine selection suggests something profound. Courage isn't inherited or gifted, it's proven. This thematic through-line connects to later games in unexpected ways. In The Wind Waker, the King of Red Lions explicitly tells Link that he doesn't carry the Triforce of Courage because the Hero of Time took it with him when he left that timeline. Link must prove himself worthy by gathering the 8 pieces of the Triforce of Courage scattered across the Great Sea. He's not chosen, he chooses to become the hero. That's a direct spiritual successor to Zelda II's philosophy.
Similarly, in Twilight Princess, Link receives the Triforce of Courage only after demonstrating heroic qualities, protecting the children of Ordon, resisting the Twilight transformation, accepting the burden of becoming a hero even when he could have fled. The mark appears as confirmation of what he's already shown through actions, not as a gift that creates heroism from nothing. Even in games where Link seems destined from birth, like Skyward Sword, where he's explicitly the chosen knight of the goddess, the journey still requires him to face trials that forge courage rather than just awaken it. Skyward Sword's Link must complete the Silent Realm challenges, facing manifestations of pure fear while completely defenseless, collecting sacred tears while pursued by guardians that instantly kill him if they catch him. These trials don't test whether he has courage, they test whether he can maintain courage under absolutely terrifying circumstances. So what Zelda II established wasn't just a one-time narrative choice for that specific game, it created a template for how the entire franchise approaches heroism. The best Zelda games, the ones with the most compelling character arcs, are the ones where Link earns his status through adversity rather than receiving it as birthright, and Zelda II was first to explore this concept. But let's return to the specific journey of Zelda II's Link for a moment, because there's another crucial element that makes his story unique: isolation. Unlike almost every other Link, this hero journeys largely alone. There's no companion character offering guidance or comic relief. There's no Navi, no Midna, no Fi, no King of Red Lions. The wise men Link encounters in towns offer cryptic hints and teach spells, but they don't accompany him into palaces or help during battles. The towns themselves are populated by civilians who provide information and restoration, but they can't fight alongside Link. This solitude amplifies the courage required for the quest. Link enters each palace knowing he faces the challenges alone. When he falls to enemies, no one resurrects him. He starts over from the beginning. When he's lost in a labyrinth, no helpful companion illuminates the correct path. When he faces Dark Link in that final confrontation, it's just him versus his shadow, with no one to offer encouragement or assistance. The loneliness of the journey makes the courage needed to persist even more impressive. And yet, paradoxically, Link isn't motivated by selfish concerns or personal glory. His entire quest is to awaken someone he's never met, to correct an injustice that happened generations before his birth, to retrieve the Triforce of Courage, not to claim the power for himself, but to use it to save Princess Zelda. That's remarkably selfless heroism. He endures brutal difficulty, faces overwhelming odds, and persists through countless deaths, all for someone else's sake. This altruistic motivation connects to a deeper pattern in the Zelda franchise. The best heroes are those who act for others rather than themselves. The hero of time seeks to save Hyrule even though he's an outsider raised in the forest. The hero of winds saves his sister and ultimately all children threatened by Ganondorf's scheme. The hero of Twilight protects the children of his village and the people of both light and shadow. Courage in Zelda isn't reckless bravado or selfish ambition, it's the willingness to face danger for the sake of protecting others. Zelda II's Link embodies this principle perfectly, and he does so while facing arguably the most difficult challenges in franchise history. The game's reputation for punishing difficulty isn't exaggerated. Speedrunners and challenge runners still consider it one of the hardest Zelda games to master. Casual players who breeze through Breath of the Wild or Twilight Princess often struggle to even complete the first palace in Zelda II. The combat demands precision, the platforming requires perfect timing, and the overall adventure shows no mercy for mistakes. But here's the thing, that difficulty serves the narrative. If Zelda II was easy, if Link could coast through palaces and defeat Dark Link without breaking a sweat, the Triforce of Courage wouldn't mean as much. The value of earning it comes from the genuine challenge overcome, from the real courage required to persist when every indication suggests giving up would be easier. Players who complete Zelda II feel a sense of accomplishment that mirrors Link's own achievement in-universe. They didn't just watch a story about courage, they experienced it through gameplay. This Ludo-narrative harmony, the unity between gameplay mechanics and narrative themes, represents Zelda II at its artistic peak. Other games in the franchise sometimes have disconnects between what the story says and what the gameplay does. A character might claim Link is in terrible danger, while the player easily defeats every enemy. Or the narrative might emphasize Link's legendary status, while gameplay makes him feel weak and ineffective. Zelda II has no such disconnect. The story says Link must earn courage through brutal trials, and the gameplay absolutely delivers on that promise.
The experience system, the unforgiving combat, the punishing death penalties, the labyrinthine palace designs, the increasingly difficult enemy placements, every mechanical element reinforces that Link is growing through adversity, that courage is earned rather than given, that becoming a true hero requires genuine struggle and repeated failure before ultimate triumph. And that triumph, when it finally comes, feels absolutely earned. The moment Link defeats his shadow and claims the Triforce of Courage isn't just a story cutscene, it's a validation of everything the player endured throughout the adventure. Every death to Iron Knuckles, every game over to Moas, every frustrating palace navigation, every barely survived boss fight, it all led to this moment of genuine achievement. When Link places the Triforce of Courage on the pedestal and awakens Princess Zelda, breaking a curse that lasted for generations, it's one of the most satisfying conclusions in the entire franchise because it was earned. Compare this to games where Link defeats Ganon through inherited power or destiny-granted abilities. Those victories can feel meaningful, but there's something uniquely powerful about a hero who built his courage from nothing, who proved worthy through trials rather than being told he was worthy from the start. The legacy of Zelda II's approach to heroism echoes through the franchise in ways that often go unrecognized. When Breath of the Wild positioned Link as a knight who failed, who died in battle and had to be resurrected a century later, who must rebuild his strength and memories from scratch, that's spiritually connected to Zelda II's philosophy. This Link also starts without power or special status. He's weaker than he was, stripped of his legendary capabilities, and must earn everything back through exploration and combat mastery. When Tears of the Kingdom emphasizes Link's resourcefulness and creativity through construction abilities, when it forces players to adapt to new challenges and develop new strategies rather than relying on established patterns, that's building on the foundation Zelda II established. The idea that Link's heroism comes from growth, adaptation, and persistent courage rather than predetermined destiny. Even the franchise's approach to difficulty options and challenge modes connects back to Zelda II. Master Mode in Breath of the Wild, Hero Mode in various titles, the second quest in the original Legend of Zelda, all of these recognize that some players want to be truly tested, want to experience the kind of challenging heroism that Zelda II demanded as its default difficulty. The game was ahead of its time in understanding that meaningful challenge creates meaningful triumph. But perhaps the most significant legacy is how Zelda II defined the Triforce of Courage itself. Before this game, the Triforce was just a MacGuffin, a powerful artifact sought by various characters. The original Legend of Zelda split it into pieces that Link had to gather, but it didn't assign specific qualities to specific pieces. Zelda II established that courage was a Triforce virtue, that it could be earned through trials, that it represented something profound about heroic character rather than just mystical power.
This conceptual framework became foundational for the entire franchise. Ocarina of Time's splitting of the Triforce into power, wisdom, and courage with specific bearers for each piece, that stems directly from Zelda II's establishment of courage as a distinct element. The idea that Ganon embodies power, Zelda embodies wisdom, and Link embodies courage, that trinity comes from the groundwork laid by the adventure of Link. And here's a wild thought to consider. What if Zelda II Link's journey represents the archetypal pattern that creates the hero's spirit that reincarnates across timelines? The franchise establishes that the same hero's soul returns repeatedly to face darkness, that Link isn't one person, but a recurring spirit of heroism. Skyward Sword reveals this cycle began with the first Link and Demise's curse. But what if the specific quality of that heroic spirit, the emphasis on courage, the willingness to face impossible odds, the persistence through repeated failure, was defined by this Link's journey? In the Downfall timeline where Zelda II takes place, this Link is one of the few to genuinely triumph after the Hero of Time's failure. He succeeds where the legendary hero fell. He earns the Triforce of Courage that the Hero of Time once possessed. He proves that courage isn't about being the chosen one, it's about choosing to act heroically regardless of whether you're chosen. That philosophical stance could have echoed through the timeline itself, influencing how the hero's spirit manifests in later incarnations. It's worth noting that Zelda II takes place chronologically late in its timeline branch, after A Link to the Past, after Oracle of Ages and Seasons, after Link's Awakening, after the original Legend of Zelda. This Link has seen his world ravaged by darkness repeatedly. Ganon has been resurrected and defeated multiple times in this timeline. Hyrule has fallen and risen and fallen again. The weight of history, the accumulated despair of a timeline where darkness keeps winning, that's the context in which this Link chooses courage.
He knows the odds. He knows heroes have failed before. He knows that defeating Ganon once doesn't mean darkness is vanquished forever, and he undertakes his quest anyway. Not because prophecy demands it, not because the gods selected him, but because someone needs to awaken the sleeping princess, and he's the one who found her. That's courage in its purest form, choosing to act morally despite knowing the risks, despite lacking guarantees of success, despite the very real possibility of failure. The game even mechanically reinforces the possibility of permanent failure through its lives system and game over states. Unlike later Zelda games where death just means restarting from the last save point with minimal consequence, Zelda II genuinely threatens to end the quest completely. Run out of lives, game over, start from the beginning. This isn't just mechanical punishment, it's thematic resonance. Link faces actual stakes, actual consequences, actual risks. His courage is tested against the possibility of genuine failure, which makes his ultimate success more meaningful. And when he succeeds, when that final screen shows Link and Princess Zelda together as the curse breaks and she awakens, it's not just a happy ending, it's a validation that courage can triumph over darkness, that a hero doesn't need divine selection or legendary weapons or predetermined destiny to achieve the impossible. All he needs is the willingness to try, the determination to persist, and the courage to face his own shadow. The adventure of Link ends with the Triforce complete, with Princess Zelda awakened, with Link having proven himself worthy of the title Hero through trials that would have broken lesser spirits. The final image of Link and Zelda standing before the completed Triforce isn't just romantic resolution, it's the culmination of a journey that redefined what heroism means in the Zelda franchise. This Link didn't save Hyrule from Ganon's resurrection. That happened in the previous game. He didn't prevent an apocalypse or stop time from fracturing. His quest was smaller in cosmic scope, but equally profound in personal terms. He saved one person. He corrected one ancient wrong. He earned one piece of the Triforce through trials that tested him to his absolute limits. And in doing so, he demonstrated that heroism isn't measured by the scale of the threat faced, but by the courage shown in facing it.
The untold story of Zelda II's hero is that he's the most authentically courageous Link in the entire franchise, precisely because his courage wasn't gifted, it was forged. Every other Link receives some measure of divine blessing, inherited power, or destined status that marks them as special from the start. But this Link? He's just a young man who sees injustice and decides to correct it, who faces impossible challenges and persists through them, who confronts his own shadow and defeats it through sheer determination. That's the story players miss when they write off Zelda II as just the weird difficult one or the black sheep of the franchise. That's the narrative depth hidden beneath punishing difficulty and unconventional gameplay. That's the profound philosophical statement about courage and heroism that the game makes through both its story and its mechanics working in perfect harmony. The Adventure of Link isn't just a challenging game, it's a thesis on what it truly means to be courageous, and its hero isn't just another Link. He's the foundational example of earned heroism that every subsequent Link builds upon, whether players realize it or not. His journey from ordinary youth to bearer of the Triforce of Courage, earned through blood and determination and countless failed attempts, represents the real hero's journey that defines the entire Zelda franchise. So the next time someone dismisses Zelda II or overlooks its significance in franchise history, remember that this game gave Link his courage, and that changes everything.